So, have you ever felt like releasing is hard, especially if you need to do it often or you need to do it fast? Or let's say if your developers decided to release without the proper testing? I bet you did at least once. The bigger our projects become, the faster we want to release. And it means the more pressure we have and the more testing we need. And I think you know where it leads us. It means that testing suffers. So hi, my name is Yevheniia. I'm a QA Guild leader in Wix. I'm also an ICAgile authorized instructor, sharing my passion around Agile testing around the world. And starting from this year, I'm also a founder of Alpha IT School in Dnipro, where we're educating QAs at different levels. So today we'll be talking about my team. My team name is Promote. I've been working with it like for a long time, and I've just recently stopped working with them. But my team was about 18 developers and only 2 QAs to these developers. These numbers will give you some easy understanding of our team. And once we got to the situation when we felt like releasing is hard for us, we started thinking about how to solve this problem. And the first one that came to our mind is to build a successful automation strategy that can really help solve our problems. So today we're going to talk about the goals that we were setting in front of our automation strategy. We'll talk about the exact questions that we were asking ourselves. And this question may be building blocks for your future automation strategy. We will also talk about the toolset choice and how these tools can actually support and help your automation strategy. I will share our case, how we did it, where we started, and what is the current case. And the last part is about some not to fail tips. It is about some lessons learned that we have from our strategy. Once we started doing this automation strategy, we actually had some kind of an automation, but we basically looked like this guy. We were doing something, but it didn't really help us. So we had an automation, we spent some time on it, but it doesn't mean that it helped us actually. So we decided to get the correct results. We need to set some specific goals that we need. And our goals were quite common. The first one was to be cost and time effective. It means for our automation to help us move faster, to help us deliver faster, to reduce the time for manual testing, to provide a fast feedback loop for development, and to actually deliver the product to the market faster. So the next thing that we are aiming to do is to build an evolution for our QA engineers. It means that we wanted both to build them as a technical specialist, because like QAs are usually less technical because they're doing a lot of manual job. And we wanted, like in our case, we wanted to become more technical and make them closer to the developers. And the second thing, we wanted to make our QAs an owner of the quality on our project. And the last but not the least, of course, we remove the QA as a bottleneck in the end of software development lifecycle. So once we decided with our goals, we needed to move forward, and we realized that we need to answer some questions that we have in order to really build our automation strategy. So these steps you can use on your projects also, and it can be like a real building blocks. So the first questions that we were asking ourselves is, what are exact testing levels that we want to cover? Like I said before, in the beginning, we had some kind of automation, but it was looking kind of like this. We had some tests, but they're not really fully covering our use cases, and they didn't mean that we're okay completely. So we thought like we need some more complex approach. And the first thing that came to our mind was the classic automation pyramid by Mike Cohn. And I will just remind what does it represent. It represents a simple idea that you can have basic levels like unit tests, integration tests, and end-to-end tests. And you must have as much as possible fast and cheap tests that are unit tests. And you can have as low level of slower and more expensive tests, meaning E2E. So more units, less end-to-end because they're more slow and they're more expensive. So, but it doesn't mean like this is enough. It doesn't mean that it will fully fit your product, and it didn't work fully for us. So It means that we started to implement our own levels. We decided like we want to have also component tests. We also wanted to have a visual test. We also wanted to have some kind of our tests that I don't know even how to name, but they were really solving our problems. They were really solving our use case. And one more thing to understand also is that your pyramid will not always be a pyramid, because this is like a best practice, but it doesn't mean that it works for all the projects. So your pyramid can be like an ice cream, or can be like a square, or even a star, as you wish, if it really fits your use case. The next question we are asking is, who will be covering the exact testing levels? The more common approach is returning to the classic automation pyramid, is when your developers are covering some lower level tests like units and integration, and QAs are covering end-to-end and doing the manual job. So if I will return to my numbers inside of my team, 18 developers, only 2 QAs, you will feel like there is an issue. It means that QA didn't have enough time to write all the end-to-end tests, so we decided to go in a different way. We decided to split not by levels, but split by priorities. It means that we decided to educate our developers to do end-to-end tests really well. And we decided that developer, for example, in most common case, developer will do the priority one for end-to-end, the most crucial tests, and QAs will do the remaining part. And it made us very flexible. Sometimes if QA felt like he doesn't have time at all to write the tests, developers did it. If developers had time, like no time to write the end-to-end, QA can do it. And basically makes you super easy to play with resources in the end. So the next thing that we are asking ourselves is when to cover the exact tests. So basically the best practice, the best case, of course, you can be a very good guy if you will do it, like to automate everything before you release. A good guy approach, but doesn't work in all the cases. Sometimes you don't have time. Sometimes you have some circumstances that do not allow you to automate everything before production. So in some cases, of course, we could allow ourselves to automate only crucial things in the beginning and to automate the remaining ones in production already. But you must understand that this is minimal allowed. Like minimal allowed was to automate at least something before you release. Because if you will not automate anything before you release, and you will say like, guys, please, like one day we'll automate it, right? One day we will cover it. Your developers will be like this. Nobody will automate this test. So the next situation is in our projects, like in our infrastructure of Wix, we're doing A/B tests. I want to ask you a question. Who is doing A/B tests on their projects? Please put a plus into a chat. If you are doing A/B testing on your projects, please just put a plus. I'll wait for a few seconds for your replies. So if somebody is doing A/B tests, just put a plus. Okay, cool. So just to explain, A/B testing is the process when you split functionality between two auditors of people, meaning that you show one feature, like, or one version of the feature to 50% of people, and you show another version or another feature to a different 50% of people. After you do it, you measure the success of each feature by some KPIs, and you decide which feature will be staying on production. The second feature moves to trash. So we usually have this situation in Wix. And if we decide to go with the first approach to automate everything before we do the A/B test, meaning before we deploy code to production, it will look kind of like an all-in, meaning that if our test will fail, if it's a crucial test that can usually like fail and go to trash, it means that our automation also goes to trash. It is not such a lean approach. So in such a crucial cases, we decided that we will automate the crucial things before the A/B test. During the A/B, we will do some kind of an analysis of the user scenarios that users are using. And after the test wins, we will automate the remaining ones. The next question that we were asking is when to run the specific tests. In our case, we have typical phases where we can do it. It is a local run when developer is doing some code, some refactor, running some tests to just make sure that his changes are okay. The second phase is when your development is pushing the code to repo and it is waiting for the a pre-merge state when your CI is running this test. The second phase is when you are in the release phase and you're basically running your tests before you really deploy code to production. And the last phase is when your project is in maintenance phase and you want to do some kind of a monitoring. Let's say you do not do any changes and you want to make sure that your project is fine. This is called monitoring. Maybe it's kind of nightly runs or daily runs, morning runs, some kind of like this. You can also run your tests there. So if you feel like your tests are long to run, and this is going to be the next question, we'll get back to it. But if you feel like you need to make this time as short as possible, you can do it this way. You can select some fast and low level tests for the local runs so developers can do it really fast, like units and APIs for local runs. You can add the end-to-end sanity to the pre-merge. You can run end-to-end regression on the release and on the monitoring to run all this year. So you're basically making more and more and more to the end of this phases. So, but we selected a different way. We decided that we want to be more sure and we wanted to run all the tests at all phases. So now we're coming to the question for how long should your test run if you want to do this run all approach. So this is how my developers actually look when they're waiting for the test run to pass. And how long do you think they're going to wait? I believe in max 15 or 20 minutes. The most kind developer will wait for an hour. But basically, if it's going to be more than 15 minutes, they will feel like they're wasting their time. They can do the code, but they're waiting for the test run to pass. And of course, it will, if something will fail, it will make it only longer. So in this case, you have two basic options. You either run less tests, meaning that you reduce your suite. You can use impact analysis for that, or you can use some testing intelligence approaches for that. But you can also go a different way. You can select to run faster. And this is the way that we selected. So after you really answer these questions and you really feel like you want to do the exact thing, you need to understand that tools are extra important to support this automation strategy. Some of the teams even start to work with tools first because their tool set is limited. So the tools are as much effective as the steps before. In terms of our case, like I said before, we wanted to be closer to the developers. We wanted to split end-to-end responsibility between devs and QAs. And it led us to some specific choices in the toolset. The first choice that we did was JavaScript as a main language for the automation, because it makes super easy to work together with the development, to share tests, to review tests together, and to, it will be super easy for developers to maintain even your tests. So the next choice that we did was about using Puppeteer. You can use any other JavaScript framework if you select JavaScript, but we selected Puppeteer because it was also, in our opinion, closer to the developers and more friendly to the devs. And the last part of our toolset is AWS Lambda that we selected to use to be more fast. Like I said in the previous question that I was asking, how long should we run with tests? We decided to run faster. So, and AWS Lambda was our choice to try to run as fast as possible. And where did it lead us? We got the great collaboration between QA and developer in the end. So another question around the toolset is, what is the type of the environment that you use? The more common approach is when you have multiple environments, development environment, test environment, staging, production, and you do some kind of testing, let's say manual testing on each environment or on some environments, let's say only test environment or only staging. So the same thing about automation. If you have multiple environments, you need to actually choose what is the testing levels that you will run on a specific environment. Either you want to run all the tests, or you want to run the specific tests or only some specific environment. So it is up to you to decide. In Wix, we have a different situation. We have a production-only environment. Production on the environment means we do all the testing we have in the production. We're using feature toggles, we're using experiments, and it allows us not to affect real users. It allows us to open this new feature only for our own, let's say for some test users. And we do actually all the manual part there. But automation is the same. We run all the automation on the production environment. It allows us to work on the same environment that our users are using. If you feel now like you want to go to your manager and say, we need to use the production on the environment, you need to understand that it has both pros and cons. In terms of pros, it is really like real data that you use from users, same environment, it is a lot faster, you do less testing, but at the same time, you can really affect your users. You can affect the real production data, and you cannot do such a critical test that can fail your production because it's just like not allowed. You will fail it for everybody. So you need to be very careful with production testing. And once we answered all of the questions, we set up our goals. We answered who will cover, when to run, how long to run. And after this, we selected the tool set and we started from doing the POC. In my team to do the POC, we had multiple projects and we were looking for a project that will start this POC. And if you feel like it was, they were super enthusiastic, everybody wanted to be a guinea pig, to start, to try it. No, developers were kind of like this. They were running away from us and saying like, we do not want to be guinea pigs. But one day we found one team that couldn't run. But it is all joking, but we found a team that was ready to do some changes. Product manager was ready to invest time in it, and developers were ready to do tests. And we started implementing the strategy. I will show you an example of the kind of checklist for little features that we did. We've selected the specific levels. We've selected how many tests should we have. We've selected the mapping of the use case per the testing level. We decided when to run. And actually, we covered all of our feature as way as we wanted. We really spent more time on it, but what we got in the end? We had two exactly similar projects that we were developing in parallel. One of them was with like usage of the automation strategy, and the second one was with our typical approach. Exactly similar projects. So the first one, where we had no strategy, we just were using our previous automation as we did before, we spent 1 month to refactor the project completely, to test it actually, and to fix the bugs. And for the second project, where we did the automation strategies that we used, we spent twice less time. We spent only 2 weeks for this project. And after that, of course, everybody was saying like, okay, I like it, I want to use it. Our managers were like, okay, everybody now will be using it, and developers were super ready. And they were super ready because they actually felt like it was really a lot easier to not to return everything to testing like multiple times, to not to fix some stupid bugs, to check it earlier, to really reduce the time to this delivery, and it made it super easy for all of us. So after we were great with this POC, of course it didn't happen immediately, but after we did good with this POC, we moved to general process. Before we started, of course, we had some general QA process, some QA approach that we used, and we needed to basically ingrain this automation strategy into our common approach. So our product development starts with the first phase that is called product kickoff. On the product kickoff, we basically do product requirement design. We also, from the QA side, we challenge the requirements, we ask the correct questions, and really try to think of the testability in the beginning. So after we designed all these things, we have the real designs, we have the requirements design, we move to the next phase. The next phase is called technical design plus Jira splitting. So this phase is for developer and QA to sit together and to really work on the small decomposed features that we will do. It is very important for automation because as better you decompose your features, the better you can plan your automation, you can design your automation. So we were split into smaller Jiras, And after we had a vision on how we will be delivering it and what is the Gantt for this and like what is the order for tasks, we moved to the QA planning. The QA planning phase, this is the time, this is your time, this is time for automation. So in this phase, we were thinking on how can we test these JIRAs. We took our automation kind of pyramid. We took all the testing levels that we decided to use. We took all the timelines that we will be using. And we were using our use cases to map them on our strategy, meaning that we're selecting some feature and saying, okay, this will be covered by unit tests. This will be covered by end-to-end tests. This will be covered by visual tests. We're selecting those and really making sure that we're as much cost effective as we can do. We didn't want to waste extra effort without getting the good return. So on this phase, we decided how to cover our use cases with our testing levels. We did the prioritization for them, and we also decided who will gonna do them. So on this phase, we really decided like, okay, developer will cover the priority one for end-to-end. It will cover the unit tests and integration tests. Okay, QA will cover visual tests and priority 2 and priority 3 for end-to-end. We said, okay, developer will do it right when he does the code, and QA will do it after he gets this code in production. So after this phase, we moved to the actual development. Developers did their job. They wrote the code. They did their automation. We didn't force anybody to use some test-first approaches like TDD or BDD. It was up to them totally. But there was important, like you have a definition of done that you need to cover the test that you are assigned to. So it really helped developers a lot, especially in future and some time. They started to feel like making changes is easy. Making changes is really safe. Before that, it was like, merge and pray. You just do some code, you push it, and you wait for your CI to fail, and you use it will fail. But after this, just to add, we selected a framework that can allow us running end-to-end on the local environment on fully production data. So developers could run end-to-end tests on their local environment with their local changes. So it made changes for them like super easy. And of course, after that, they moved a lot better code to the QA. So in the QA, the first that we got a lot less manual testing. We started spending it a lot less time, and it made the testing really more interesting. We stopped doing checking, like just going by some specific use case, checking the requirement, and that's it. We started doing more exploratory. At the same time, QA could go to the developer and say, okay, I don't know how to write this test. Can you show me? Or developer can come to QA and say, please review my test. It made this collaboration between these 2 points super easy. And QA started to feel like they're more technical and they understand the product better. And it led us to better testing. So on the next projects that we deliver, QA planning phase was better and better with every time because QA better and better understood how he can test this feature. And after that, we delivered the project. I will remind you that after delivery phase, sometimes delivery for us means the full delivery to really place all the codes to production. And sometimes it was about doing the A/B test. So if we were doing the A/B test, after the delivery, we had another phase to create a Jira task for the current technical debt to automate the things that we didn't automate before the A/B test. And it was like an important thing in our Jira, we couldn't close this actual feature without covering those tests. Because if you close the feature and you say you released it and you forgot about it, just remember the pictures that are shown about the developers. They will never do it. So, and after we did all of this, there are multiple lessons learned that I want to share with you because building the good strategy, being technical enough, having a lot of hard skills isn't 100% of success for your automation strategy. The first thing is that you really need to work hard in the beginning. It doesn't mean that if you want to have an automation strategy, you will need to write all the automations that you want to have. It basically means that you will need to really educate people. Sometimes to come to developer and say, okay, let's sit together and review your code. Sometimes you'll need to go to ask the questions for your technical leader. Sometimes you will need to make sure that somebody has this task assigned and he will do it in the end. In the beginning, you really need to be like, you need to have it in control because people are adjusting to the process. It is hard for them in the beginning. The second thing is that you need to think first. Think first, I mean that think if you really need this automation, if you really need to do it hard. What I felt usually when we were doing automation with the developers, sometimes developers are trying to do some harder solution that is needed. So we decided we must be lean. We must think first if we really need this automation. And after that, we need to think if we can do it easier. Third advice is remember to be cost effective, because if you feel like you're cost effective now, and if you feel like now you can allow yourself to cover everything on end-to-end tests, you don't care about the money, you feel like you're okay, and you will cover everything with end-to-end, then in 1 year, you will not be such cost effective. In 1 year, you will feel like it is very expensive to have such a lot of end-to-end tests. It is very expensive to maintain them. It is very expensive to write them. And it's also very expensive to use the environment for these tests. For example, like AWS Lambda, let's say. So be cost effective from the early beginning. And please always remember about this picture. Tests will not fail if you don't write tests. I wanted to say that hard is not enough to build a successful automation strategy. Successful automation strategy is also about a great soft skill of change management. You will really need to change the mindset of people, because I usually hear questions like, developers don't want to write tests, how can I convince them? Or my developers feel like tests are useless for them. Or my managers don't understand, why should I write those tests? Why should I spend time on them right now if I can do it manually and I can do it faster manually? So you will understand that you need to be a change manager. You need to really go and change mindset of people. And only if you have a mindset, at least 2 people that will help you, in this case, your automation strategy will run, and it will take time, but it is okay, because in the end, you will get really, really successful results. So to conclude, what should you do? Select your goals, ask what to cover, who will cover, when to run, for how long should you run. Select the toolset that will support your strategy. Build the POC and check the strategy really works. How to check the strategy really works? If you feel like releasing became super easy for you, it means that your strategy works. Thank you.